Okay, I'll call to order the special meeting of the Brandon City Council of March 26th at 5:30 p.m. Christina, can you call the roll?
Clark. Here. David. Here. Fish. Here. Jorgensen. Here. Cole. Here. Parsons. Present. Mayor Lumberg.
Here. No public comments, no public here, so that would eliminate that line item. COVID-19 update and information. Brian, you want to start that off?
Sure. We've been a little active lately. Monday we met with the businesses that would be primarily affected, restaurants, bars, etc., to discuss what.
You're okay.
No, I'll just
I
move
just
it.
want to make sure you get your microphone.
So we'll discuss kind of what we were thinking with regard to COVID-19 and any ordinance or legislative action. We had, I think, 9 out of the 15 or so invited. 3 of them that I talked to couldn't make it, but they'd already implemented drive-through service. Very good response. All of them were very cooperative. The gyms, the restaurants, bars, all seem to be accepting, and most of them, at least the restaurants, food businesses, have already taken steps. And if they have not, I think Anthony can give you an update later. They are implementing steps as of today for compliance. Speaking of Anthony, we appointed Anthony Lingen as our COVID-19 liaison. He is the school resource officer, and since there's no school, we thought we'd shove some new and improved duties on him. He is currently contacting and working with all of the businesses in town to, as requested by the governor in her executive order, to implement or plan to implement best management practices as far as the COVID regulations, CDC regulations. Anthony, if you want to give a little update as to where you're at so far.
You took the podium away.
Oh, I did. I took the podium away.
Oh, there you go.
There.
There you go.
Come on down here.
I spoke with all the restaurants and casinos in town, and all of them that I've spoken to agreed, to abide by what the proposed ordinance was, or had gone beyond that already. I have started going on the large list of all businesses in town, and all the ones I've spoken to have dictated they've already started doing their either reduced staffing or making sure that they were taking care of CDC regulations and things that they all needed to do as far as that's concerned. Just for reference, I spoke with a dance academy here in town, and they don't allow anyone there other than staff now, and they do all their learning online. So they do classes. They still do them. They just are all done over the internet.
Good. We're having some discussions. One of the disappointing things, we have just about a conference call a day between the various organizations, whether it's the first-class mayors with the governor, city managers, etc. One of the disappointing things is, as these cities implement these restrictions on business, the question is always asked, what are you doing to provide assistance to these businesses? And then there's silence, as nobody's really talking about assistance. I don't know if everybody's waiting for the feds to step up. We have started having some discussions about possibly utilizing our revolving loan fund to provide some short-term loans to businesses anyway. I think since we revised those regulations a few months ago, we could maybe accommodate some business loans if they're needed. So we're working through that. We're starting to work through.
Right there, Brian.
Go ahead.
If I can, on that, that was through, that revolving loan fund was through conversation I had been having with Steve Tripp. Just, I'm not going to say stumbled on it, but he is on the board, so he is going to be the lead on that. He's taken off with that I think Mr. Jorgensen is on that board, and I don't know who the rest of them are, but he's Mr. Parsons, Mrs. Fish, so he's gonna be calling you guys tomorrow and getting that rolling. So thanks to him.
And just to add to that, the chamber had sent out an email, I believe it was just today, that talked about some loan opportunities through SBA, so that would be
Yep, and we've
something to
got,
pass along too.
they announced through USDA Rural Development some funding opportunities as well. We've got that information posted on our website for small business loans. That's the next thing I was going to talk about with the federal program that hopefully is approved by the House today. I haven't heard. We'll review those guidelines and rules and get those out as soon as we know what they are to help provide some assistance for individuals. We'll probably stay out of the individual business because I think that's going to be pretty automatic. But there's their small business loan program. We'll see if we can get some information out on that. We're putting some ads in the journal about every other week. I've asked Jill to devise about a quarter-page ad regarding COVID and some of the steps and protocols that people should be taking. She's got the first one out. Will be probably in next week's paper. We're meeting with the athletic associations Monday to talk over the impact of the no more than 10 people on their seasons, on their league seasons. So baseball, softball, tennis association, soccer probably will have a negative impact on their seasons. Some of the communities are talking about if they start up their seasons, it will be after July 4th, since the information we've got is that the virus should peak in 8 weeks here in South Dakota, and they may run into June and into July. So we'll meet with them on Monday. In conjunction with that, we're currently reviewing pool schedule and summer rec. Quite frankly, we were looking at opening the pool Labor Day or Memorial Day. Might be Labor Day now. But that puts us, if we're looking at 8 weeks, one of the aspects of this is closing, or restricting access to pools. So we may not open the pool this year. So we'll be talking about that with the park committee at the next park committee meeting. Same thing with summer rec. If we're restricting the size of gatherings, we usually, I can't remember how many kids, but there's certainly more than 10 kids in summer rec. So that program may be impacted as well. I'm thinking that's...
Do you have any luck with the ministerial?
No, I reached out to Kirk, or Reverend Strand, so I'm waiting for his call back and see what we can do through them.
I was approached, there was a question if the community foundation could help individuals, and community foundation has to give their money to a 501c3. And so then we went down the path of maybe the ministerial association, or an example would be like a daycare in a church might be a 501c3, something like that, but just for individuals. I don't think that that's going to work for the community foundation, but maybe ministerial. I think if there was if people knew about it, I think they would contribute to that. But we would need a funnel. We need some place how to administer it.
Thank you. So I think that's everything I can remember.
Just a quick snippet on budget, Christina, if you can.
Budget.
I thought I was depressing.
Yeah. Now you want to talk this.
Just
I did
so
send out a
people know what we're doing.
memo yesterday to department heads and staff, warning them that sales tax will probably come in, well, not probably, I expect them to come in lower than what we had budgeted. I told them to just be careful on supplies and don't over order. Consider holding off on part-time staff, or at least minimize how much you hire for part-time staff. Vehicles, equipment, if you haven't ordered them, probably hold off. So I kind of gave them an update to just lay low for now until I have more of an idea in the next few months. I think it'll probably be more 3 to 4 months before I have an idea, but just because sales tax kind of lags behind.
Good, thank you. Okay, any questions of administration, or? If not, we'll go right into the ordinance 606, declaring a health emergency and limiting public gatherings within the city. Brian, you want to review that? Everybody has seen it, I assume, and you want to just give an overview?
Yeah, a little history. A number of cities started last Sunday with Rapid City and Huron drafting ordinances restricting businesses and/or gatherings of people. I think everybody's in the state is sharing their ordinances. This one is primarily based on the one that Sioux Falls is reviewing, well, today I think, or at 4, I think is when they're meeting.
Just passed it.
Okay, good. A little difference between Sioux Falls and us. They are a home rule charter city, so they can pass, during an emergency, they can pass an ordinance with 1 reading. We are not a home rule charter city, so we are required to have 2 readings 5 days apart. So we will schedule another special meeting for Tuesday, at which the second reading will take place. And then if the ordinance is adopted, it will become effective immediately upon adoption. Or if you want to put a time of 7 p.m. on March 31st, whatever you want to do, but it would become effective immediately upon adoption. It doesn't have to wait to be published. The bunch of whereases there are just kind of the history and the foundation for the ordinance with the executive orders from the feds and the state, little definitions of, or defining of what COVID-19 is. The meat of the ordinance starts on page 2. In the middle of the page, the last whereas, South Dakota Codified Law 929-1 and 932-1 gives the cities the authority to enact, by whatever means necessary, legislation to protect the health and safety of the citizens. So that's the enabling legislation from the state. Going off of Sioux Falls's ordinance, we made a couple of minor tweaks in the definitions. I added the language "and restricting gatherings to no more than 10 individuals." Under paragraph 1B, we added church, funeral home, retail, banking, general business, primary or secondary schools to the definition of enclosed business that promotes public gathering.
Can I ask you clarity on that? Because the Sioux Falls Council meeting, they talked quite a bit about what their definition of businesses that promoted public gatherings were, and they were really pretty firm on the list that they had, and then everybody else is expected to follow social distancing and the CDC recommendations and et cetera. So I'm a little, I guess, perplexed at why we're calling some of them out, because then it's like, so why aren't salons in there, or why aren't this in there? So I don't know that I'm in favor of specifying or making it that much different than Sioux Falls is on this part of it.
The big one there, and Lisa mentioned it, and we talked, the big one there is general business, which is kind of a catch-all.
I think that's what they were avoiding in Sioux Falls. They were really wanting to target where people really gather, but when you say general business, that's everybody, and I don't see necessarily a small bank as where people go to socialize or gather. They're in and they're out.
No, that's, these, we can tweak this if everybody's comfortable with doing it. This was just kind of our first, here's what we think. So if you want to add or delete anything, we can do that.
So this is more stringent than Sioux Falls?
Probably. It's probably more stringent than Sioux Falls.
It's encompassing, less stringent.
Yeah, certainly less encompassing than a lot of the other ordinances that we're seeing, where they're just closing businesses. They're ordering bars, restaurants, churches, gyms to cease and desist.
Like where?
Virtually every.
South Dakota?
Yes, virtually everywhere. I shouldn't say that, because I don't remember all the ordinances I've read, but they're all pretty similar. Rapid City, Huron is probably the most stringent, which is understandable. So all of those have very similar language. It's just, you will cease and desist all operations, not just public gatherings. So for instance, at churches, my thought this morning was, how do you cease operations at a church for a funeral? Or you're gonna make them stop all office staff, all ministerial, so they're not gonna be able to do payroll, general maintenance and upkeep on their facilities. I don't think that was their intent, but that's what the wording was in the ordinances. So we can certainly review that section. Description of a patron is just a customer or visitor to the business. In here, we will be closing the golf course lounge and the golf course community room, as well as the Brandon Conference Center. Somewhat similar to, we don't own all of the public-owned facilities that Sioux Falls has, but these are ours. We own them.
I see a lot of other city halls are closing to the general public. Are you considering that?
We've talked about it quite a bit.
Let's hit the mics, guys, so it goes over.
I didn't hit my mic.
Oh, sorry. We have talked internally about closing City Hall. Most of those cities that have closed City Hall you can come in by appointment, or if you basically knock on the door, we'll let you in. So we don't see what the benefit is to closing City Hall, because we don't have a lot of people just dropping by. Those people that come into City Hall have business to do with us, so we would let them enter anyway. Not only that, but next week, we are modifying our front entrance to a restricted access entry for safety reasons anyway. So we will, in essence, be doing the same thing.
And we have absentee voting going on right now, so we have to keep it open.
Oh, I should have updated everybody on the election. Can I go back to elections? You should have mentioned something.
I have to think about it until now.
You know, our municipal election is scheduled for April 14th. At this point in time, Christina's really been trying to push absentee balloting, so we've already received
We're up to 25 or 30.
absentee ballots. So the legislature is going to be very busy Monday at veto day. They will have a number of items on their agenda, not just reviewing of past bills. One of those items is election. There's been a push from some of the larger communities to delay the municipal elections until the June 2nd primary. Unfortunately, under current statutes, that is not allowed. One statute says if you're going to change your municipal election, you have to do it back in January. And then there's publication dates and petition dates that are tied to the June 2nd primary that are different than the April 14th primary, and those dates have already passed. So the state is looking at passing some kind of legislation that would allow cities, if you want to move to the June 2nd primary date. At this time, if that passes, our recommendation is to hold steady with the April 14th. Couple of reasons. One, we've already got 20 ballots in for absentee ballots. Two, if their projections are correct and COVID peaks in 8 weeks, that's about June 2nd. So as far as transmission, it's probably less likely in April 14th than June 2nd. Christina's doing a very good job of making sure that we're going to have adequate hand sanitizer, wipes. We're instructing the judges to go around and wipe everything down on a regular basis. We'll look at protocols where they're not exchanging your driver's license. Just hold it up, we'll look at it. The other thing that Christina's done is has purchased more Brandon pens that we will give to the voters, and you can take them with you if you want or throw them away, so that everybody will get a clean, fresh pen at the voting site. Anyway, got off track there. Private business. These are the restrictions that we're going to be looking for those private businesses. No more than 10 patrons. And we added language to make sure that they have sufficient space. I got it. I just caught it. Space to have at least 6 feet between patrons, so about 60 square feet of space to meet that requirement, or if they're not immediate family members. We're also encouraging them to utilize business models, curbside service, drive-through, social media we added because the gyms in town are starting to use social media for classes. And I think 24-Hour Fitness has been fairly successful in that endeavor. And then we have our list of restrictions. I don't have corona, it's viruses, or it's allergies. Healthcare facilities, childcare facilities, businesses that offer food off-site, drugstores, pharmacies, grocery stores, etc. Hotel, motel, room service, crisis shelters. Golf courses are open except for their bar or lounge that's associated. So we are planning to continue operations at the golf course for golfing. Andrew has done a very good job at developing some criteria, really pushing the online sign-up tee sheet as well as payment online. He's even talked about maybe giving a reduced price if you pay online, so then they don't have to come into the clubhouse. They've switched the tees around so that everybody will be teeing off of number 10, which is the closest to the clubhouse, so that we can monitor. We don't have to check them in. We can just look out the window. Okay, that's the foursome that's ready to go. They're going to extend the times between tee times from, I think, 8 minutes to 12 minutes, so to get a little more spacing. We have not talked, or we talked about requiring one person per cart. We're not quite ready to do that yet. So they're doing some things out there. Of course, emergency facilities. We also added something different from a lot of the other cities. We are exempting official meetings of the city, school, township, county, or state because we are required under state statute to have an open meeting. And I don't think we can do that if we restrict only 10 people, because if you count, we're more than 10 now. And Yvonne Taylor with the Municipal League, that was one of the questions that was asked. They may be promoting some legislation on veto day, if not then probably maybe the next session, to give cities some leeway to open meeting regs. I don't see that going through, but we've exempted ourselves from this requirement. And then we've exempted the state and federal courts just in case they close them down over in Sioux Falls. We'll invite them over here. And then we just want them to take all reasonable measures to ensure the social distancing guidelines were feasible. That's where Anthony comes in. As he goes out and meets with these businesses, we'll ask them to at least, if they don't have a plan, to give us some ideas of what they're planning on doing. For instance, some of the larger manufacturers can't really shut down Marmon at 250 employees, but if they can, and they're large enough that they've got plenty of space, but if they can stagger their break time so they don't have a lot of employees in their break room at the same time, they can, some of the things that folks can do a little bit further on, screening, if they can implement COVID-19 screening. You're seeing some places where the employees come to work, they get scanned, see if they've got a temp. Item C on page 4, this gets back to the alcoholic beverages licenses. We have 2, the Double D and VFW, and Tailgaters.
Oh, there's more, yeah.
There's more. Anybody that has an on-sale only license won't be able to do off-sale. So one of the things that's been discussed is to mitigate some of, if they're closed down and they can't really function, would they be able to do off-sale? Currently, no, they cannot, and we cannot allow them to. But that might be one of the things that is brought up on veto day. So that's why I added the language down here, unless authorized to do so by the state of South Dakota. So in my mind, that would allow those on-sale liquor licenses to automatically do off-sale if the state permits it. So a little bit of a mitigation.
Like you could walk out with a bottle? I mean, you couldn't walk out with a drink.
Yeah, no, you can't walk, it'd have to be a sealed package. That'd have to be consumed off of their premises. We don't prohibit any employee, contractor, vendor, or whatever from working on site. So in theory, there may be more than 10 people in a business. There may be 10 patrons. and 1 or 2 or 3, however many employees that business hires. If they violate it, it is a violation of the ordinance, and each day of that violation is a separate offense, which is very typical for all of our municipal infractions. This would be very typical to any other of our other infractions, which would be a Class 2 misdemeanor, subject to our fine schedule, or possibly up to $200 a day for each violation. Could be up to $500.
Well, we defaulted to $50.
Okay.
It's not specified in the resolution.
Okay, so maybe we should specify that. The city of Lenox, in their ordinance, it's $500 for the first violation, $2,500 for the second violation. Ouch. The other thing with a Class 2 misdemeanor, if you are a business with an alcohol license, a Class 2 misdemeanor may subject you to loss of your license. So there's a pretty good stick there for those licenses, those holders.
So if we want it to be different than the default $50, does that have to be done by resolution then?
We can put it in here if
In
you
here?
want.
Put it in the
Okay.
ordinance.
Yeah. And then some recommendations for all of the other employers, either profit or nonprofit. And I think everybody's aware of these recommendations from the CDC. Social distancing, allow employees time off, limit work gatherings, eliminate non-essential travel, and then the regular checks for COVID-19 screening. So all citizens of Brandon, we're encouraging them to follow CDC guidelines, understand the vulnerability for those over 60, which is fast approaching, and or immunosuppressed individuals. Please assist those folks. And then finally, paragraph 5 on page 5. This is to remain into effect. We don't have a sunset date on it. Some of the communities have put in a sunset date of 60 days. Some have gone to this undefined time period. But in here it is required that this will be on every agenda until it is repealed. So that gives you, the council, some flexibility. If things improve dramatically, it will be on every agenda for you to review, and you can repeal it at any time. I know it's kind of a pain in the butt.
And a repeal is instantaneous?
Yep, it would be by resolution, and it would be repealed at that point in time. And then that last, be it further ordained, is just stating that this is an emergency, health emergency under SDCL 91913, so we do not have to wait for it to become effective after publication. It's effective immediately upon adoption.
So I would make a motion that we approve this with the amendment of item 2 under definitions to default back to the original draft and follow Sioux Falls.
Motion and a second to approve with the amendment to, help me with that, Dana. Where is that again?
It's item number 2 under definitions, which just keeps it
Under B?
shorter and matching what Sioux Falls
Is that
passed
B?
today.
Yeah, 1B.
Oh,
Do we have a copy of that that can be read?
go ahead, Dana. You got a mic.
So definition for item number 2 is enclosed retail businesses that promotes public gathering as used herein shall mean any enclosed facility operating as a bar, restaurant, brewery, cafe, casino, coffee shop, recreational or athletic facility, health club, or entertainment venue. Such terms shall further include any parking lot and or patio or other outdoor seating area for such facility.
So it doesn't include church in that one.
Correct.
And if I just might add, it doesn't include church, funeral home, retail, banking, general business. What Brian and I discussed about adding the general business in, for example, in the primary and secondary schools, that's added there, is there certainly are businesses that have meeting rooms, and the idea was to not have the retail stores that have a meeting room all of a sudden have a craft, a crafting event, or having people be able to have their meetings at Marmon Energy in their break rooms. And so that was the discussion we had to throw out to you to see if you wanted to expand to address those issues where, like a bank has a meeting room and could be used by the Optimist Club and you have more than 10 people. So that's why we had the discussion. That's why we included the general business, the funeral homes, the churches, and the retail and the banking.
And just a little discussion that was held with the Sioux Falls City Council is they decided that all of that fits in under the section that deals with all other employers, both for-profit and not-for-profit. So that encompasses everybody without singling out certain specific businesses.
Part of your motion, are you going to do something with the fine?
You can do that as a separate motion if you
Okay,
want.
all right.
So just to clarify what I was talking about there, on page 4, item F, it says that all other employers need to do 1 through 5. So that would then pick up your churches and your banks and every other business out there.
And it says are urged and encouraged to, that's the word we use, so they're not required to. So legally, it doesn't get to what you just said that they have to.
And just for clarification also, on private business 3A, where it says there is sufficient space, that's not requiring or given enforceability for the police department. For example, if they go in, if you've got 10 people and they're all gathered in the corner, as long as that place has got sufficient space for them to be, I don't think that we can enforce that they have to stay 6 feet away, correct?
City attorney was shaking her head,
Right.
yes.
Right, so they need to have the sufficient space, but if 2 people are standing right next to each other, that's not going to be deemed a violation where the business owner would be cited.
And one of the questions that Anthony had today was, what if we have 10 people?
Mike, Brian,
Oh, sorry. Anthony was asked today by one of the businesses, what if we have 10 patrons in and another person comes in? They don't want to, the advice is ask them to leave. If they don't comply, then you're going to need to call the police department and we can come and assist them off the premises. We wouldn't necessarily deem that, as long as they're trying to get the patron to leave, we're not going to think that is a violation.
It's not like I'm trying to play this out in my head. So let's say we're at ACE. So they can't have more than 10. That would apply to them? That would not apply to them at this, if we change it.
No, if you change it, so we are encouraging those businesses not listed to comply. So, for instance, Subway, I went and picked up a sandwich at Subway today. I walked in there, they've got blue X's on the floor every 6 feet. I thought that was about as cool a thing as I've seen. So any of those retail stores that aren't subject to, that's something very simple that they could do at Ace. Put an X, so if they've got a line of people at the cash register, which they have every Saturday, just make sure that they've got markings on the floor, something simple and easy.
And I think they are doing curbside service, and then you note that I think all the banks in town closed their lobbies, so I don't think you have to worry about that.
I'd like to make it not so draconian. I mean, I think everybody, well, I shouldn't say that. I would hope everybody's trying. I don't know from an enforcement standpoint what's better for you, but I would hate to leave, I think, this general business, all of that in there personally. Anthony, where are you seeing the most questions? Is there a particular area that we should address that is hard for you to manage?
I haven't had a lot of questions about the ordinance itself. Most of the time, they just were asking, well, what do they do if we get more than that? I haven't had any pushback from any of the businesses I've talked to so far on actually complying with that.
One of the things that came out from the meeting on Monday, a lot of those businesses are happy to do what we ask them to do. They're just looking for direction from us as to what they should do. Now, it's very easy to have voluntary or easy compliance for a couple of weeks. This is at least 8 weeks probably, and it could extend further. So it's as this stretches on, it's going to be more of a challenge to get compliance. I hope not, but
And we can always come back and revisit this and modify it if we
Yep.
need to make it more
That's-
stringent.
That's one of the reasons why I put that in there. It will be on every agenda. So you get to review this. So if we do have an issue that arises, we can address it in the next meeting or two.
So is it easier to start out less stringent and go more stringent, or is it the other way? Start out less?
Yeah, I mean, I'm just envisioning businesses, it's springtime, you've got nurseries setting up out, you mentioned Ace Hardware. What if you have a few people out in the nursery and a handful of people in the store? Now we have to fine them. Oak Ridge Nursery, same thing. They've got all of this space, but they can't have 10 people there. So I think we're just being too restrictive. I'd rather give them a little flexibility, and if we need to come back and rein it in, then we have that opportunity. I also think following Sioux Falls is a good thing, because otherwise we could send people to shop in Sioux Falls because they feel they can't here.
Very positive thing, and a thank you to the city of Brandon, the Brandon community, is vast majority of everything we're doing tonight with this ordinance is already being done by the vast majority. There's only 1 or 2 outliers right now. That's pretty cool. That's very cool. That happened either on their own or a visit from myself or a meeting that Brian and Christine and myself had with all those. They were more than willing. It was just cool to see that. It's one advantage that Mayor Tenhaken can't get down Minnesota Avenue. I can hit almost every bar and restaurant in an hour and a half at noon.
Thanks for doing that, though. You didn't have to do that, so appreciate that.
It just shows how helpful the other people are. Okay, I'm going to ask one more time, Dana, to read that new B, if you can. Motion and a second to pass the ordinance with a new 1B, as Dana will read right now.
And again, that just mirrors what Sioux Falls passed today, and it
Correct.
states, enclosed, and this is under definitions, enclosed retail businesses that promotes public gathering as used herein shall mean any enclosed facility operating as a bar, restaurant, brewery, cafe, casino, coffee shop, recreational or athletic facility, health club, or entertainment venue. Such term shall further include any parking lot and/or patio or other outdoor seating area for such facility.
Very good. Any further discussion on part of the council? Yes, Lisa?
I don't know if you want to address that offense before you,
We can do it as a separate
okay.
amendment. Just one thing, I did intentionally leave out the word retail where it says enclosed retail business. I did intentionally leave that word retail out. Because there are businesses that aren't enclosed that, you know, athletic facilities aren't enclosed. We own all the athletic facilities except for the football field. But those I wouldn't consider enclosed. So I did leave the word retail out of that definition. We can put it back in if you want to.
Hearing no strong feelings one way or the other, leave it as is, as delineated. Further comments, questions? Christina, call the roll.
Clark? Aye. David? Aye. Fish? Aye. Jorgensen? Aye. Cole?
Aye.
Parsons?
Aye. Motion passes. Thank you. Any other business, Brian?
If you want to talk about amending or setting a fine amount, that's on page 4, item 3E.
Sioux Falls is $500, is that correct?
I think I saw
Is it?
that's what I saw, I think.
I didn't hear the whole thing, but I think one of the things we talked about is multiple violations, you know, and the feeling over there was that a person could absorb a $500, and some of these people could absorb a $500 fine and then operate for the rest of the day. And I think that I want to say that they revised that so, well, it's not just every day, but you go in, you issue the citation, they refuse to close down or modify, can they, you know, by this, they don't have to do that. I think under the Sioux Falls one, they discussed having okay, that's another violation. It's kind of like a speeding ticket. You speed, you get a ticket, you drive away from the squad car, and you take off speeding again, you're going to get another ticket. Same thing with loud parties, noise disturbances. If you have to issue a citation for a violation of a noise ordinance, and then they say, have a good day, I got my ticket so I can turn my stereo back up, yeah, they can get another ticket. I don't know if we want to address that or if there's a need to, but you know, paying a $500 fine and then just keep on doing what they're doing.
That's a good point. I mean, if they're,
Lisa, do you have an opinion on that?
You could set it for a, you know, repeat violation the same day. Could be a class 1 misdemeanor for every repeat violation. Keep the first one a class 2 misdemeanor. And then you could do it where everyone thereafter during the same day would be a class 1. So then you could issue more.
Can we go to a class 1? I thought municipal ordinances were pretty much restricted to class 2.
I'd have to go look in there, but I thought we could do a class 1. And I can look real quick.
Okay.
can it just be per occurrence? So if Officer Lingen goes in there in the morning and they're still doing it in the afternoon?
You could say every hour. I mean, if you wanted to, every half hour.
We'd have to break it down by a
No,
specific
you were
time.
just asking me. I mean,
Okay.
so I'm saying you could do more than one a day. You could say every hour you could do one.
Well, I'm just saying set a fine, $500 per occurrence. And then if it's twice in one day, it's twice in one day, and it's $1,000. I don't know, I'm just trying to keep it simple.
We did it with the fireworks, didn't we? We said the first one is going to be this, the second one's going to be this. So, I mean, per occurrence.
I do think one way or another it needs to have some teeth, otherwise, like Dave was saying, I mean, if their profit's a couple $1,000s a day, what's a $200 fine. It'd be worth it for them to keep plugging along.
Don't get me wrong, I don't anticipate that is even gonna be an issue. It's just a minor point that,
That's what I was just gonna say, that $500 in the businesses in Brandon, pretty much, we don't have that establishment that it's gonna allow them to continue on.
yeah.
I mean, $500 a day profit in a bar in Brandon is a pretty good day, I would think.
You could always amend it later too if you're finding there's a problem.
Why don't we start there and do $500 a day? Does that sound fair?
$500, leave the language, each day of violation of this ordinance is allowed to occur is considered a separate offense. Leave that in there.
Yeah,
I think.
Yep.
So I'll second that motion.
that was a motion.
Motion is second to set the fine, I'll say, at $500 per day, and as the language said, each day a violation of this ordinance is allowed to occur is considered a separate offense. So just adding $500 a day, correct?
Yeah, we'll put, yep.
Any further discussion? All in favor, signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
You need a motion to approve the first reading.
Oh,
So moved.
Second.
motion is second to approve the first reading of ordinance number 606. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
So can we get any of this information out there yet? Because it's not for sure? How do we do that?
We will. What we can do is post on our website anyway. This is the ordinance as approved. The first reading was approved by the city council. Second consideration will take place on Tuesday, the 31st, at which time it will become effective immediately.
What time are we gonna make that meeting?
5:30?
Can you send that to the chamber too, Brian?
Yep.
Thank you.
I have a question. When you know we get the city tax, like the people that signed up for that, can you send that out, like saying, check out like this ordinance? You know, like instead of just putting on, I mean, I'm put on the website, but then can you do a text so people know, oh, I better, is there a way you can link? Where they can click and just, and then read it themselves? Maybe?
Or for sure Tuesday when it's effective.
Yeah.
But I think it would be good to know that they know that we're working on it. Do we still use the email system at all, Christina? We were supposed to kind of like get away from that, but
Yeah, we
We do, but there's very few on.
not many on it.
Another thing we do have on our website, kind of did a couple things. I've been doing some things as I'm getting some messages from the mayor. Those have been going in news and announcements. A couple tweaks I made today is under our mission, we just had kind of our mission statement on there. I did add the most recent message from the mayor on there, so anytime I get an update from the mayor, I'll add that on there, as well as on the news and announcements. And then at the news and announcements, there's a COVID-19 information. I'll keep that at the top, so I'll just keep refreshing that to the top. It gives the South Dakota Department of Health link, the CDC link, South Dakota Information Hotline that the South Dakota Department of Health has. Minnehaha County has some COVID information on theirs. And on the Minnehaha County, I did find the helpline 211. They had some information on there about the One Sioux Falls Fund that is open to Minnehaha and Lincoln County, Minnehaha, Lincoln, McCook, and Turner counties. So I did put that on there as well. And then there is some other documents in there. So I will keep that kind of up to date. And at the top of that news and announcements area. So,
I would just also make the request, I mean, any additional information that we can be doing to educate. The Public Health Director, Jill Franken, has said in numerous of the televised events they've had over there, you know, the public is hungry for local information and they're confused and they're scared. You know, even like ideas for businesses like the Subway 6-foot tape, I think that's awesome. You know, if there's a way we can share different ideas or suggestions or recommendations. I know Governor Noem's directive talked about, you know, please offer special shopping times for certain clientele, encourage staff to telework. I don't know that everybody is following government addresses. Maybe they are, but I think the more we can do on a local level to reiterate that is a good thing for our residents.
What about the issue of the kids playing together? I've gotten several comments about that. I don't know that that's our place to direct that.
That is not our issue, that's a parenting issue.
Well, and I just think it's good to get it on our system to say that. I don't think that's our responsibility, personally.
We could certainly remind them. Oklahoma City actually shut down their parks because they were having such a problem with all the kids congregating and being all over the equipment, which is not practicing social distancing. I certainly don't want to do that here, but that education, I just don't think people necessarily connect all those dots. You know, you're hearing that kids aren't really susceptible, so maybe the guards let down a little bit there. Again, just the more education we can do, the better.
I do have a bright spot to share. So, Ida Grove, Iowa, I don't know if anybody's been there. They were encouraged, okay? Last night, everyone was encouraged to put their porch lights on, and the EMTs, the fire department, and the police came through and honked their horns and stuff, and I guess it was really, you know, just kind of encouraging. So I thought that that was a great little story.
I would just like to compliment the mayor for his release yesterday. I thought he did a fine job of providing very good information. I think a lot of I can completely understand why we're doing this. I just think it's completely unnecessary.
Thank you. I'm going to close, I think, and I'd be remiss if I didn't thank Mayor Tenhaken. As I said, from day one, the city of Brandon, that I have lived down with those two, Christine and Brian lately. They've been rock stars. But from day one, we needed to take our leadership from Sioux Falls and the governor of the state of South Dakota. Those are the guys that know. As I told Brian, Mayor Tenhaken has more lawyers than we have total employees on staff, and that's the leadership we look to, and that's valuable, and puts a lot of pressure on him. But I'd like to thank him for that. It's just he didn't sign up for that, but he got it, and thank you. So with that, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn. So moved. Second. Motion is second to adjourn at 6:27. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you all.